Yeah, so happy New Year to everyone. I believe you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay, okay. So myself is Ananda Juardar, and I am working in Tata Consultancy Services as an integration architect. And overall, I have 17 plus years of experience. I started working MuleSoft around 2017 beginning. So more than 5 years I am in MuleSoft space, and mostly I work as an integration architect to deliver, I mean, to helping customer to set up MuleSoft platform. And I work with large insurance company and then banking, commercial banks, and now currently I'm working with a US based global clinical trial organization. I completed my MuleSoft certification on MuleSoft architect level, and I'm also a delivery champion. And currently, I'm trying to contribute and also trying to learn from MuleSoft community. I think this is the best part of MuleSoft and one of the great way to learn things. And that's it from I mean my as my introduction. So let's move on to next. So today this is the agenda. I mean, we will first see what is CloudHub 2.0, and then probably we'll touch base on the architecture part, then some of the features of CloudHub 2.0, and then I will explain a little bit on the last mile security. I mean, theoretically, what does that mean? And then we'll see how CloudHub 2.0 deployment flow means when we deploy the application on 2.0, how it is different than our, I mean, current CloudHub 1.0 or whatever is the original CloudHub. And then we will touch base on the application monitoring part for CloudHub 2.0 applications. So with that, let's start. So what is CloudHub 2.0? So basically, this is a MuleSoft offering and iPaaS offering where they are coming up with a pool of containers where we can deploy our MuleSoft application. And like CloudHub, it is fully managed by MuleSoft itself. And I mean, through containerization, MuleSoft is bringing that more lightweight part of it. I mean, you can deploy your application and it can be enabled very fast because it is lightweight. And these containers will isolate the applications from each other so that applications can run by their own, and no one application cannot access the other. So that containerization will create a boundary across that applications. So before we move further, let us see what is the difference between virtual machine and container so that we can understand it a little bit better way, that why MuleSoft is keep on saying that CloudHub 2.0 is a lighter version and your application can deploy or enabled on CloudHub 2.0 much faster than it is in CloudHub 1.0. So if we look into virtual machine at high level, so basically what virtual machine it does is that we have hardwares, physical hardwares. On top of that, there is a layer called hypervisor, which actually virtualize those hardwares and create a virtualization. Like, I mean, it underneath maybe there are multiple machine running, but on top of hypervisor, it seems that it's a common pool of infrastructure on top of which you can deploy your virtual machines, or you can spin up your virtual machines with your application, your binaries and libraries, and with a gateway. So if those who are worked already on any cloud platform, so you know that when you enable a EC2 machine, I mean elastic cloud computing machine or any computing machine on any of the cloud vendor, you have to choose the I mean the OS image. So that's the gateway. So on top of that, you deploy your application, and that's how the virtual machine works. And that is how we do deploy application on CloudHub 1.0. So when we select one worker for a particular application, basically underneath it actually spin up a virtual machine from AWS offering. Now, if sorry, now if we go to container, so containers are much lightweight, because if you see what container is doing, on top of infrastructure here we also have the host operating system, and on top there is a container engine. So any Docker or any container engine, when you use it, you need to take the Docker for either I mean either your Linux operating system or Windows operating system, and then in that Docker will help you to containerize your application and binary libraries to run that application. And that application finally containers goes into pod, and that pod is equivalent to replica, what we say in MuleSoft CloudHub 2.0 world. And that's the way how you can enable or spin up your application. So since we don't have any guest OS here, the host OS is outside the container, so that will make this entire deployment model very fast and very lightweight. I mean, this is one of the advantage or one of the difference between virtual machine and container. I'm not going to discuss all the differences or all the nitty-gritty of container, because first of all, I don't know all these things. Second of all, I mean, this is not the topic of this discussion. But just to give you a high-level idea, that is the difference underneath what I mean when we say that this is a virtual machine versus this is a container.
Oh, Ananda, sorry to interrupt. I have a
Yeah,
doubt.
sure.
Container engine, there will be guest OS in the sense.
No, no, no. Container engine is on top of your host operating system. So container will ship. I mean, you can give only the application and binary libraries and anything on top of operating system. I mean, if we consider the infrastructure layer, so container will come on top of operating system, whereas virtual machine will share infrastructure below the operating system. Whatever is when it will share the network, it will share the storage and any other computing power, but operating system will be operating system will be inside the virtual machine, whereas container operating system will be outside the container.
Yeah,
So
in
that's the
yeah,
difference.
in the right side of the image, like I'm just trying to understand where the guest OS would sit. So in the left side, it has been in the virtual machine, correct?
Yeah, so there will be no guest OS for container, it's all the host OS.
Oh, it's all the host operating system that
Correct,
will
correct,
take place.
correct.
Oh,
So
okay.
when there will be a replica will go down and MuleSoft will spin up another replica for you, it will not reboot the operating system, and that's why you will save some time. I mean, that's the way how it will make the container or the replica will be much faster to be available for use rather than virtual machine, if I say it in that way.
Oh,
Because
okay.
when it will spin up a virtual machine, it needs to restart or reboot the operating system, then binary libraries, and then application. So there is always a one extra layer.
Okay. So in no such concept of rebooting.
No, 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 no. Because your container engine will interact between or create the interface between the application and the host operating system. So that's why when you create a Docker image or something, you have to take the Docker for either for Linux or for Windows operating system. So whatever, I mean, whatever container engine you are choosing, so Docker is the container engine, so it will be different for your operating system. Means for Linux it's different, for Windows it's different, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So aspect of the operating system, the host operating system takes care of everything, correct?
Correct, correct, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so as a parts, I mean, as an application developer or a application maintenance, I need not to worry about that operating system if I'm using container. I mean, I just need to focus on my application and binaries and libraries and containerized it and push it to my Kubernetes environment.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. So let's now move to the features of CloudHub 2.0. So first thing, already we have discussed that it's a faster spin up of application since it is container based, and why it is faster, that's what actually I tried to explain in the earlier slide. Second thing is the vCore allocation. Now in CloudHub 2.0, they have now provisioned much granularity in terms of vCore assignment. So in CloudHub 1.0, if you remember, when we allocate vCore, it is point one, then point two, and then straightway one worker. So problem is that if I have to, I mean, when I'm saying point one vCore or point two vCore, it is actually I am trying to get some infrastructural capability in terms of memory and CPU utilization. So if I have some kind of workload my API needs to deal with, where I need more than zero point 0.2 vcore but far less than 1 vcore, I don't have any other option, right? So from zero point 0.2, if it is more than zero point 0.2, I need to straight away deploy the application on 1 vcore. So and these vcores are costly, right? Workers are costly. So only option what I need to do is that then I need to keep on adding additional endpoints so that I can give better return on investment. But I have to deviate from the REST API standard. Maybe as per standard, that API is supposed to be used for a specific business need. But since I cannot accommodate that API within zero point 0.2 vcore, I have to go to 1 vcore. So I will try to utilize more infrastructural capacity. So maybe I have to add additional endpoint, which is not as per API standard. But in CloudHub 2.0 now they have given in between zero point 0.2 and 1, there is a provision of 0.5 vcore, or between 1 and 2, there is 1.5 vcore. So that's why there is more granularity. And that's why it's not needed now you to think that even if as per your business requirement additional endpoints are not required, or maybe you don't need to club two different API in one. So to to keep your underneath vcore utilization optimum. So that is one thing. Third thing, what it is coming up with a new feature is that outbound firewall rule. So as of now in CloudHub 1.0, we have inbound firewall rule, where especially in dedicated load balancer, we can have we can map URI. So based on some logic, I can redirect or read out the traffic from a specific, from public internet, from a specific endpoint to a specific API on a specific environment. Now I can also do the rule configuration if I am using a private space on outbound firewall. So that means, suppose I have just for an example, that I have a layer of experience API and I have a process API, and I want that experience API always going to talk to process API and not any other thing. So in that case, I can define it on the outbound firewall, that kind of rule configuration I can do, and I can control the egress traffic, the outbound traffic. And then we have a clustering feature where you can do a clustering. So it's clustering means I can use multiple replica. I can use multiple worker in CloudHub 1.0 also. But additional benefit of clustering is that if I select the option clustering, then these nodes or replicas can talk to each other. And that's the way that proper clustering mode can be implemented. And it's as a developer or as a user of CloudHub 2.0, I don't need to do anything. I just need to select that I am going to use multiple replica, and then I have to just give a tick to a configuration. And that's it. And for shared space, like it is the shared load balancer and dedicated load balancer, we all know, right? So from that same concept, shared space, we don't need any infrastructural maintenance to do. It will be all MuleSoft. Okay, we just need to deploy our application on shared space, and shared spaces are available in 12 regions across the globe. So the advantage is that you can take any of the region which is nearer to your backend application, and that will give you some performance improvement, reduce the network trip. So moving
Sorry.
to the
And
next
then
slide. Yeah, yeah. So
the last point, whatever you told, that's there with CloudHub 1.0, nearest place we can deploy our application and.
Correct. But when that depends on where you are creating your VPC and which region you are taking the CloudHub 1.0, right? So I will show you when the demo session but here in CloudHub 2.0, when you will select the shared space, when you are going to deploy the application, that application itself, that time you will see in the drop down that there are multiple regions are available with CloudHub 2.0 shared space. So it will say shared space at Ohio, shared space at North Virginia, so something like that. So that was not available in CloudHub 1.0. CloudHub 1.0, it will always say CloudHub, and you are going to deploy. And then based on your licensing VPC where you are doing, and that region, the API will go.
Okay.
Okay, so you cannot select that, okay, I'm just going to deploy. I have a license, I have CloudHub 2.0. Now I want to deploy one application at Ohio and another application on suppose North Virginia or Europe or anywhere in Frankfurt or Ireland, based on the availability region, that kind of selection I cannot do in CloudHub 1.0.
Okay, you meant to say in the Cloud of 1.0, if the licensing is in UK, like so we might not be able to, we were not allowed to deploy our application on in the US or Singapore or whatever.
Correct, correct. Because by default, it will go to that region only. And you don't have any option to select. But CloudHub 2.0 will give you that option.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay. And mostly it is not on your control I mean, when I'm saying you or me, it's like as a developer, I cannot control it, right? I don't have any choice from the drop down list. So, but here it is in available on the drop down list itself.
Okay, even the licensing is with UK and we can deploy our application in Singapore or whatever.
Correct, correct. Yeah, that's what how they are showing it. I mean, in the I mean, I have my trial version, so by default it is. I think it will be Ohio. But if you see in any enterprise version or in it with titanium license, you can see in the shared space the all 12 regions are always available on CloudHub 2.0, and it's up to you where you want to deploy the API or
Oh,
application.
okay. Yeah.
So now these are the things where CloudHub 2.0 has some improvement. But for my personal opinion, and again, this is my personal opinion, I mean, nowhere MuleSoft has discussed or mentioned it, that I don't say that CloudHub 2.0 is a better version of CloudHub 1.0, because there are a few things still not available in CloudHub 2.0, few things are still available of CloudHub 1.0. So as of now, I consider it this. I have two options. I can go CloudHub 1.0, or maybe I can go CloudHub 2.0 based on my customer need. And but these are the things which CloudHub 2.0 has enhanced over CloudHub 1.0. So one thing, as we mentioned, that there are more fractional vehicles. So obviously that is a uh, I mean, based on, I mean, even if you see from customer perspective, because with the cloud hub license are costly, right? So if we have more option, more granular vCore option, so that will definitely give a better return on investment. And then this auto scaling of private ingress load balancer. So when I talk ingress load balancer, it is equivalent to dedicated load balancer. Now, in dedicated load balancer, what happened that you have to at minimum you can deploy the dedicated load balancer on 2 worker, and it can be expanded up to 8 worker if I correctly remember. But thing is that on the fly, if there is any traffic and your dedicated load balancer cannot expand, then what you need to do, someone has to manually go and add more worker on the dedicated load balancer level. But here it is auto scaling, so you need not to worry. I mean, that kind of elasticity 2.0 has bring, so it will automatically expand if there are, I mean, if the load is so high. Similarly, VPN high availability is also out of the box, and we have both private and public endpoint available in private space. So when we talk public and private endpoints, that means public endpoint is the endpoint using which some external system or someone from public internet can access my API, whereas private endpoints are when the API within a VPC or within private space in CloudHub 2.0 terminology, they want to talk to each other, or you want that API to be reachable through your transit gateway or through VPN tunneling, where you are extending your VPC with your customer network. So inter-network communication, to be specific, you want to do it through private endpoint, because you don't want the traffic to go to public internet and then again come back to your VPC. So if that is the case, then you can use the private endpoint, and both the endpoints are available. I mean, when you deploy a application on private space, it will provide you both the endpoints. And additional thing is that in private space, you can use, I mean, you can configure multiple public endpoints. So even if one API being used by two different subdomains or kind of two different department, you can create two different endpoints for same API and share it with two different subdomains or two different departments. So another third thing is that this log enable disable feature. So in CloudHub 2.1.0, if you want to stop sending your log to Anypoint monitoring or CloudHub. Instead, you want to redirect your log to suppose to some third-party log aggregator system like Splunk or Elk. Usually, what we need to do, we need to connect with our CloudHub, account executive or MuleSoft supports team, and we have to raise a request, and then they provide a feature through which we can enable or disable this logging. We can enable, disable the logging part. It is not out of the box. At first place, you will not be able to get that feature. But here in CloudHub 2.0, that is available out of the box. And last thing is that means you need not to create application or deploy application with a global unique name. Like I can deploy in a API named Hello World, but in CloudHub 1.0 I cannot do, because if someone else has already deployed a API named Hello World, I will not be able to do that. It will show me that you cannot do this because the name is not unique. But here that globally unique name is not needed, because when you deploy the API, automatically CloudHub 2.0 will append a 6-digit unique ID to it, which will ensure that your API name is always going to be unique across the globe. And then there is a shard number, which is actually a number associated, or unique 6-digit number associated with your private space or shared space where you are deploying the API. So together it will always ensure you need not to worry about it. Internally, out of the box, CloudHub 2.0 will ensure that your API names are unique across the, it's unique across the globe. So as long as your API name is unique across your organization, or your org, when I'm saying organization, it's the MuleSoft, Anypoint platform org, it's absolutely fine to go. So any question, or should I proceed?
Ananda, there is one question.
Yeah, sure.
Is not, I think, not directly related here, but like, is the question is that can we host maximum of 8 workers on dedicated load balancer?
As far as I remember, yes, but you please check the MuleSoft documentation also. I believe it's, yes, maximum it's 8 worker where the dedicated load balancer. I'm not talking about any application.
Correct.
Dedicated load balancer, I think it's maximum 8 worker.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Amit, I think it's answered your question. Yeah, Ananda, please continue.
So now these are the some of the key consideration when, if you decide, especially if you are already using CloudHub 1.0, I think most of us are using it. So if I now move to CloudHub 2.0, some consideration we need to take. These are the few consideration. So one is that direct connect and VPC peering is not supported in CloudHub 2.0. So it's only support either VPN tunneling or transit gateway to extend your VPC with your corporate network or any other network. Where you want to, basically where you want to extend your network, you create a single network across MuleSoft CloudHub, then some other, maybe some AWS VPC or Azure VPC, and then on your on-premises, your corporate data center. So the only way is that VPN or transit gateway. And you cannot, in CloudHub 2.0, in CloudHub, what happened that now suppose you are deploying application, now you see that you are not using that application. So what you can do, you can stop that application, and it will free up the vCore or the worker that particular application was using, and then you can use it to deploy your other, a new application. But in CloudHub 2.0, if you stop that application, it will not free up that underneath infrastructure for you, because it is containerized and all. So what you need to do, you need to delete that application, then you will get back, claim back that infrastructure, and you can use that for your additional, for your new application to deploy. I believe I'm able to explain it. Please let me know if it is not clear. Third thing is that if you want to move your application from one region to another region, as I was saying that there are 12 region available. Suppose you deploy that application in Frankfurt, and now you decide that, oh no, I don't want to put it on Frankfurt region. I need to move my application to uh, say North Virginia region. So in that case, what you need to do, you need to redeploy the application in your new region, and you need to manually or physically delete that application from your existing region. I mean, you cannot migrate that application from one region to another region. That is not possible as of now. And then private space can be associated with multiple environments. So this is interesting. So what is happening in CloudHub 1.0, if you create a VPC, your VPC needs to be targeted to some environment. Okay, so especially non-production VPC, we have multiple environment. Like I can have dev, I can have QA, I can have test, I can have UAT. So when we create those environment and when we create a VPC and we target those environment, attach those environment to this specific VPC, I need to select those environment with their name. But here in 2.0, you need not to select them as a name. You can instead use the type. So environment can be of two type. Either it can be a non-prod environment, or it can be it can be a sandbox environment, or it can be a production environment. So I can say in one go that this is my non-production private space, and all my sandbox environment I need to attach. I mean, within our organization, or business group, that all my non-production, sandbox environment needs to be attached to this specific private space. So that way I can select, because I personally saw one scenario where one of my customer, by mistake, they have choose attached production environment to a non-production VPC. I mean, it was not done deliberately, but some by mistake they have done in CloudHub. So that kind of things you will not happen in CloudHub 2.0, because production environment, you have created that environment with type production. So if I say that by type I am attaching this environment, then I am not going to, if my private space is a sandbox private space, so there is a high chance or 100% guarantee that if I select the environment by my environment type, then all the non-production or sandbox environment will only go to sandbox or non-production private space. And similar, vice versa. Production private space will always have the production environment type. And
Sorry,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt. So, how would the option look like while we're selecting type? Is private and production such kind of?
it's a two type. Either sandbox or production. These are the two types
Okay,
possible.
if we select sandbox, all the non-prod environments will
Correct. Yeah.
fit in
Yeah.
the
Because when you
become the
create the
VPC.
environment, you have to give that you have to specify that what type of environment you are creating, right?
Sorry.
When you create the actual environment, you have to specify that what type of
Yeah, of
environment
course.
it is,
Yeah, correct, correct.
and then it will relate to through that type. Now you are going to relate your environment with your private space.
Okay, in the cloud of 1.0, it was we doing manually selecting the environment, but however, this is now
Means
taken from type sandbox only.
correct. From CloudHub 1.0, you have to select the name of that environment. Okay, I want to do dev and I want to attach UAT, I
Correct.
want to
Correct.
test. So
Okay.
that's the thing.
Okay.
And CloudHub 2.0 only support 4.3 and above. So all 4.4 environments are supported, but below 4.3 doesn't support any runtime. So that is one more consideration. Still, if someone is on 4.2 or below 4.3, then they need to first move the application to 4.3, and then they can move it to CloudHub 2.0. So some of the features not supported in CloudHub 2.0, but one thing before I go into these slides, I'm just going to, you can read it out. These are the features, but features are keep on added on CloudHub 2.0. So always check the MuleSoft documentation. Like I know that I have, when I was preparing this slide, this lock points and Anypoint monitoring was not supported CloudHub 2.0, but I think November 2022, it is already added. So now log points are available in CloudHub 2.0. So some of the other things are also, I believe, they have already included. So just always check that, because MuleSoft is keep on adding feature on CloudHub 2.0. So whatever was not available yesterday, it might available today. So yeah, so one of the option like get from sandbox feature. So if you see in CloudHub 1.0, what happened, I mean, you have deployed one application on dev, and then if you want to see, I mean, migrate that application from dev environment or your sandbox environment to production environment, there is an option. I mean, there is a button, you can click it and then you can move your code. But that is not available in CloudHub 2.0. Data graph is also not supported. I think tokenizer, we need to again check whether it's available or not. But when I was preparing this development, I mean, this slide, tokenizer was not available in CloudHub 2.0. So these are the few things still not available. So moving to this architecture part. So CloudHub 2.0 architecture, I mean, it is more or less similar to what is, I mean, high level what we have in CloudHub. Same architecture, only thing is that CloudHub 2.0, if you see this cloud kind of depiction, so where and underneath which I have written CloudHub 2.0, it's actually pool of container, not virtual machines. And that is the biggest difference between CloudHub 1.0 and CloudHub 2.0. And anyways, we have that runtime manager, and we have the same REST APIs for platform services through which the services are connecting with runtime manager, and you are, I mean, using those services for your applications. And rest of the things are same. But like in CloudHub 2.0, we have replica management as platform service because we are dealing with replicas. So this is how it's looked like as an architecture. So moving to these things, this is, I mean, this slide is only with CloudHub replica, what replica means and how, what exactly it does. So replica has a specific amount of capacity. I mean, still replicas are equivalent for our understanding purpose. We can tell that it's equivalent to our worker or code. But basically, replicas are the containers or the pods, and which is actually holding or hosting that application we are running. So basically, when we are selecting a replica, we have to select the, I mean, whether it's 0.1 vCore or 0.2 vCore, and based on that, it will decide that what will be the CPU capacity, what will be the memory size. And each replica, as I mentioned, run in a separate container, and that's why they are isolated from each other. And that is, I mean, ensuring that my applications are running in isolation. And these are deployed and managed independently. So CloudHub 2.0 manage the applications at replica level. And replicas run in a specific global region. I mean, once you deploy your application, assign the replica. If you deploy the application in US region, it will run on US region. It is Europe, then in Europe. So that's what we discussed, 12 region and all. And this is what it is saying, that replica, in 0.1 vCore replica also have 8 GB of storage. So if you want to increase the storage with 0.1 vCore of size, then you can add the additional replica. Basically, you can scale out, and obviously you can scale up also. So another interesting feature of CloudHub 2.0, suppose you are deploying one application, and that application, I mean, at that moment, you don't have any sufficient vCore available. I mean, based on your licensing, whatever vCore or capacity is available, you already consumed it up, and on top of that, you are trying to deploy one application. So CloudHub 1.0 will not allow you to deploy. It will straight away throw an error. But CloudHub 2.0 will allow you to deploy the application, but you cannot use that application, or your application will not be in a running state. It will just get deployed. And this is something related to, I mean, we don't need to, yeah, sorry.
Sorry to interrupt again. So
Yeah,
what's
sure.
the advantage if the application is getting deployed, and if we are not able to use the application, what's the advantage of
Advantage is that still I can keep that the application deployed on my shared space or private space, and in future or in near future, if I'm going to remove one of the API. Suppose you have one API and you have another new API, and this old API, anyways, it is going to be deprecated. And once you deprecate that API, that infrastructure you can assign to new API, and you can start using it. So if that kind of thing, so your deployment is done. Suppose you have a window. Many customers have windows to deploy application, right? They cannot do it any point of time. I mean, there are specific time when they need to complete the deployment, and then they can do cutover at a later stage. So I can still go ahead and deploy, but I know that this is not the time when I can deprecate my old application. So maybe on later point of time I can deprecate, and then that API, if I start, I mean, I have option to start the API from my runtime manager, then my new API will automatically start it, because now it has that infrastructure available. So that kind of flexibility now we can bring on. But in CloudHub 1.0, what will happen that even if you don't have vCore, and you know that after maybe 2 days, 3 days, or 1 week, you will get that vCore, you still need to wait. And once that situation occur, once you have the vCore available, then only you can go ahead and deploy it. And maybe for some customers, especially bank or retail, it's a problem, right? That they cannot arrange, or they cannot, or maybe for a manufacturing company who have a running assembly line for 24/7, they cannot create a migration plan at any point of time. So they have to take a lot of lot of confirmation from lot of stakeholders. So that kind of, I mean, if you think from that perspective, then it's an advantage.
Okay, to make things ready whenever we
Correct.
were on
Yeah.
the go, that helps. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. Because when you actually deploy an API, I mean, from a practical perspective, it's actually a change control management for an enterprise organization, and lot of things you need to do, right, as part of change control management. So when everyone is going to deploy their code in production, might be that is the best window when you can move your product code into production. But after that, when you have to activate the application, if that application is already there in your production environment, it's only MuleSoft admin job, right? They can start it once the, so that way, if you think, then it's an advantage.
Okay, then we can leave that activity to support this and
Correct, yeah, correct. You need not to rely on all the enterprise people who are outside MuleSoft, or who do not related to actual MuleSoft application or platform, but they are the key person for overall enterprise change or change management.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
So yeah, so the last point, I mean, metaspace is nothing but it's the physical space in your JVM, where the class, when we load the application, the class information or class loading is going to occupy that metaspace. So it's actually the metaspace limit is 256 MB, and on 128 MB there will be a garbage collection automatically happen, so we need not to worry about it. It is all underneath. I just put that point just to show you that this is how it's going to work, but I don't think it's going to be a big what should I say, I mean, it's a big point for an application developer or a person like me who is actually, I mean, I'm just bothered about my application got deployed and it's working fine, and whatever is the intent for to create that application, it is fulfilling that purpose. So moving to next, it's the multi-tenancy. So as we mentioned that there are there are three types of basically multi-tenancy. So one is in CloudHub 2.0, one is shared global space, which is the co-tenancy mode, because it's a common space where any of the license holder or any of the CloudHub subscriber, they can come and deploy their application. But through containerization, it is ensured that one tenant, one application's information cannot be shared by other application. Unintentionally means you cannot access that application, you cannot access the binaries of that application, because there is a containerization. But yes, if you want to call one API to another API, that is through your API specification, your HTTP endpoint, or whatever way you want to do. That is part of your integration plan. But what we are saying over here, that nothing can be shared across, that means that the application or the data cannot be accessible or visible to other tenant, because the container will create that, or container will ensure that a kind of isolation. And then there is a private space. So private space is like equivalent to your VPC. So it is your own virtual private cloud where you can, or virtual private space where you can deploy your application. So application deployed on the same private space through private endpoint, they can interact with each other. But if someone has to come or access your applications from outside, they has to come through this ingress load balancer. They have to pass the ingress firewall, as well as now in 2.0 also there are egress firewall too. So there are a lot of security boundaries which they need to come across, and if they are intended this is intended traffic and all, then that will reach to your VPC. So this is what is this is what is private space. And then we have this management console and platform service. This is basically the control plane. This is basically our Anypoint platform. So that will be, those services will be shared across all tenants. But again, I mean, through your access management, through your authorization and access management, it is ensured that your org will only be visible, accessible by your people, and someone else will use their own org and all to use their, or sorry, to use that control plane for their organization or for their purpose. And this is the availability and scalability. So platform is always redundant. So CloudHub or 2.0, even in CloudHub or 1.0 also, it is always ensured that whatever services are available, they are at least running on two different availability zone. So unless in one specific region, the entire AWS region goes down, it will never happen that your CloudHub control plane is totally unavailable. I mean, it can slow down because some of the availability zones are not available due to some disaster, but it will never go away unless the entire region is off from AWS side due to some bigger disasters. So it always try to deploy the services in two different regions, and availability zones are availability zones by the definition of Amazon. They are always more than 60 miles apart. So they are already, I mean, this kind of redundancy or availability is ensured. And then this intelligent healing. So intelligent healing means, suppose your replica has some problem or due to some internal infrastructure issue, your replica crashed, then MuleSoft will automatically spin up another replica and ensure that your service is available without any manual intervention from your end. And CloudHub 2.0 also provide an option zero downtime upgrade. So that means you can do a rolling upgrade. I mean, when you have an application running, and on top of that, if you want to deploy one more, a higher version of that same application, you can still ensure that, when the deployment is going on, the existing customer, if during that time also they are hitting that endpoint, they will still get the service from the older version of the application. Once the deployment is completed, then it will be available for all other, for everyone who are using this application. So that means when you are trying to deploy a new version of the same application which is already running on CloudHub 2.0, so it will do that deployment on a new replica. Existing replica currently hosting the older version of that application will be available. Once the new replica will fully stabilized, then it will crash the old replica and make the new replica available for the external consumers.
Ananda, I have a doubt here. So
Yeah.
during the deployment of newer version, even still we'll be able to hit request to the API that routes to the older version of the particular application, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So, but you have to select that option. Both options are available. Some reason, if you don't want, you want an outage window, you don't want people don't able to access, that is also possible. But that option is available.
What is that option?
I will show you. It's one is your, I think, It's rolling upgrade. Another I forgot. I mean, I will show you when I log into the CloudHub 2.0. I will show you that
Okay,
option.
that we need to select as part of
Correct. Yeah.
deployment.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Because every time it is also not. I mean, it is not desired that when I'm deploying, my old version will need to be available to my end customer, right? I mean, there are situations where I don't want to do this, so that is also possible.
Uh, okay, already have an understanding. So what if we are doing the deployment through CI/CD pipeline Bitbucket, and how does that go actually?
You have to select those options because those options are available for your Maven plugin also. Okay, so you have to define that, and if you want it to be parameterized, that also you can do through your Jenkins or Azure DevOps or whatever pipeline you are using.
Oh, the option whatever you're telling that can be parameterized to
Correct.
Bitbucket. You
Yeah,
want it?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, sure. All right.
And as I mentioned, the clustering that is also available. So that's just that is an option clustering, and it will only enable if you are deploying your application on multiple replica, and that's how it will ensure that that nodes are talking to each other. On top of high availability, it's a clustering high availability. So if one node goes down or one node have high, I mean, it's already dealing with high I mean significant number of traffic, then automatically then other nodes will take care of the additional load and all. So this, the main advantage of clustering is that nodes are talking to each other, they know what is going on the other side of the replica, or replicas are talking to each other for that matter. uh, so this is what I trying to create a picture. This is a last mile security. So CloudHub 2.0, you have a option called last mile security. So you can select that last mile security. So what is last mile security? So you have applications, and on top of that application, you have a ingress load balancer. And public, I mean, from traffics coming from public internet, first it will land on the ingress load balancer, and then ingress load balancer will distribute the traffic to your application. Now in CloudHub 2.0, whenever you deploy an application, by default the public endpoint will be HTTPS. So from public internet to your ingress load balancer, the traffic is always on HTTPS. So I think this is one advantage, another advantage of CloudHub 2.0. But now suppose your application, you have created a HTTP listener, and that listener is basically a HTTPS. So you have some kind of HTTPS. You have created a HTTPS listener, basically configured a HTTPS listener instead of HTTP. And so what you are trying to say is that, I mean, even traffic between when that it is traversing from ingress load balancer to your application, you want to use that HTTPS security or transport layer security in that layer also. And that is what we call in network terminology last mile, because that is the last phase that traffic needs to traverse before it's going to land on to the target application. So in CloudHub 2.0, if you select that last mile security, then by default your ingress load balancer will not do the SSL offloading. So it will not convert your HTTPS traffic to HTTP and then send. It will maintain that HTTPS. So it will be an end-to-end HTTPS traffic movement from your end customer or consumer to your actual backend application. Backend in the sense the Mule application, which is running behind ingress load balancer. If you
Uh,
don't select, sorry, yeah,
Sorry, Ananda.
yeah, go ahead.
English load balancer, as you said at the very beginning of the session, nothing dedicated load balancer, right? On the dedicated load
That
balancer.
is private space ingress load balancer is equivalent to dedicated load balancer, but there is always a ingress load balancer even in shared space also, but it is more like shared load balancer. So you cannot configure anything; it will automatically there. But even if you want to, especially in shared load balancer, also in CloudHub 1.0, right, you cannot do anything, right? But at least here, what you can do, you can select this last mile security, and you can also at least ask that shared load balancer shared space ingress load balancer that my traffic needs to come to you as HTTPS, and you also need to deliver the traffic as HTTPS.
Okay, this is something like whatever in CloudHub 1.0 on the
Mhm.
dedicated load balancer we have features, but in CloudHub 2.0 we have it's the same features on with shared space as well. We can control it.
Correct. Shared space also, we can control that HTTPS offloading, because if you remember in CloudHub 1.0, shared load balancer, you cannot do anything, right? It is
Correct.
totally
We
managed
don't
by.
have yeah, correct.
But here at least you can dictate that whether here it has to do share SSL offloading, or it can maintain the HTTPS traffic end to end.
Oh, yeah. Just a question, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Like in
sure,
the
sure.
cloud of 1.0,
Mm.
on the dedicated load balancer, we can
Mm.
send requests either HTTP as
Correct. Yeah, yeah.
HTTPS.
Dedicated load balancer, you can go. There are three options, right? I mean, it can be on. I forgot what all three options, but yes, I mean, you can mention that dedicated load balancer. It can be do SSL offloading. It can do from I mean, even the external customer consumer can come on HTTP in an insecure manner, and you can move the traffic in HTTP. So those things you can do in dedicated load balancer. But in CloudHub 2.0, 2 points. One is what you are. I mean, it's a very good question. The first thing, as I mentioned, that in shared space ingress load balancer also you have a option. You can tick that last mile security, and in that way you can dictate your shared space load ingress load balancer also, that boss, I will send HTTPS, you also deliver it on HTTPS. This is one thing. And second thing is that in CloudHub 2.0, any public endpoint you cannot expose on HTTP. By default, it will be HTTPS. You need not to do anything extra also. I mean, you just deploy the application, CloudHub will expose it on HTTPS.
The second point is a little bit confusing. Can you please repeat?
I mean, this part, I mean, the external person coming to load balancer on HTTPS, right? What you, if you see that diagram, right? You
Yeah.
cannot make it HTTP.
So you mean to say in the cloud of 2.0, on the shared space we can't have a HTTP request?
Even on private space also. Because once you deploy the API, the public endpoint, what it will expose, it will be on HTTPS always.
So, but in cloud of 1.0, in the shared space, we can hit either HTTP on 8081 on
Correct,
80.
correct, correct. But it is not possible here. And another advantage or means difference between CloudHub 1.0 and CloudHub 2.0 is that you did not to change the port. It will be 8081. But I mean, even if you are using HTTP or HTTPS, okay, you need. I mean, CloudHub 2.0 doesn't need to change that port between 8081 and 8082.
Okay, it will be by default 8082 all the time in
8081. You deploy it with 8081, it will work. Okay, even with HTTPS.
cloud of 2.0.
CloudHub 2.0. Yeah.
So there is no 8082 then?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hey Anand, Amit here.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
question from Aptimo. Like
Yeah.
he's asking, like if you have the auth, right, in Cloud Hub,
Mhm.
and you have created an Anypoint MQ queues and other things, and like you delete it, and like it get drops. And let's say he's asking, let's say all roles and API configs are also deleted. Can we restore from the backup in Cloud Hub?
Mm, I don't think so. Only thing is that you can connect with your MuleSoft account executive, because they have direct connection, or they have direct access to that AWS physical data center, and they have their own network team. If they can retrieve, they can. If they cannot retrieve, then there is no option. But
Okay,
I think the first place you need to connect with them. You cannot retrieve it directly. I don't think they. I mean, at least I mean, I don't know. I mean,
and
anyone.
can an org admin can delete all the roles and API configs? I think he can.
He can, if he is a super admin. Yes, he can. I mean, if the when you create the org, you have to select one person or one account as
Yeah.
the master, right? So yes, he can.
Okay. Hope it answered Aptimo your questions.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I
Thanks. Thanks.
never come across this
Yeah.
situation
Yeah.
based on my knowledge I shared. But if anyone knows, I mean, they can
Yeah.
also
Feels.
share.
Yeah.
Yeah, feel, yeah.
Yeah. Because we.
So
Yeah. Thank you. Please proceed, Ananda. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Ananda,
Yeah.
sorry, like from the previous discussion, like you already the earlier you have explained. So
Mhm.
on the dedicated load balancer, only 8 workers can be hosted. I- You weren't sure exactly, or is it what is my understanding correct?
No, no, I mean, as far as I remember, I mean, at most you can go with 8 worker for one dedicated load balancer in Cloud Abundant, if I
Yeah,
can
in
remember correctly, but you
yeah,
can check. I mean, that's what.
yeah, I'll have the basic thumb rule like one worker,
Hmm.
one application only can be deployed, correct?
Application. No, no, I'm talking about dedicated load balancer only. That load balancer itself has to create on a worker, right? So minimum it should be two, because that's how the dedicated load balancer ensure the scalability. I mean, if you see what is the difference between shared load balancer and dedicated load balancer, this is one of the reason people choose dedicated load balancer, because it ensure scalability. Because minimum, when you create a dedicated load balancer, I'm not talking about VPC, I'm not talking about any application, any worker. So when you create a DLB, you have one portion of your DLB configuration, you have to mention that how many worker you are going to dedicate, or how many worker you are going to use for that dedicated load balancer, because it's a service, right? It also needs some worker to run. So
Yeah, I
that minimum is two and maximum I think eight, if I remember correctly. But that you can check. I mean, that's what I said at that point of time also.
Yeah, correct. That I've understood. What I'm asking is on one worker we will be able to deploy one application, correct?
Oh yeah, that is different. Yes, when you deploy one application, it's one worker. A maximum you can deploy one application. Correct.
So dedicated load balancer, as you told, 8 workers can be hosted or something like that. That means 8 applications can be can
No,
take
no,
an
no, no.
eight.
Dedicated load balancer itself, it's a separate service, right? So if you see this diagram, right, this ingress load balancer, and there are applications running right behind the scene. So the ingress load balancer, I mean, for the time being, think that ingress load balancer is dedicated load balancer, and we are talking about Cloud Hub 1.0. So this ingress load balancer itself needs some worker, right?
Okay,
That
got it.
worker is
Got it.
not associated with any application.
Yeah,
Got
yeah,
my
yeah.
point?
I got confused.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
go
No,
to
no,
that.
no issue. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So yeah, let's move on to next then. I believe we can move on to next, right? Actually, I cannot see the consoles. I don't know if there is any further questions. I'm just moving. I mean, if you have any question, just stop me. So now we are going to see the deployment flow. So before I go to CloudUp 2.0 deployment flow, I mean, let me touch base on the CloudUp 1.0 deployment flow. So when we try to deploy an application on CloudUp 1.0, it will directly get deployed on my CloudHub runtime, and then from control plane, I can manage that application. So that's how it is happening in CloudHub 1.0. Now, little bit elaboration on CloudHub 2.0. So let's see, I have created an application, and again, whatever I'm showing this part, this is common between CloudUp 1.0, CloudUp 2.0, or any other deployment model. So I have a designer. In that designer, I'm creating a API specification, mostly YAML or maybe OS, and then I take that API specification into my studio, and I create my flow and my MuleSoft API. And then in CloudUp 2.0, when I try to deploy it on my uh, Cloud Hub runtime from my studio or from my local machine, it will first going to create the application on Exchange, and then from Exchange it will call the underneath Maven Mule Maven plugin, or maybe through Anypoint CLI, or maybe the platform REST API, and then it will deploy the application on runtime manager. So first it will publish Exchange, and then it will deploy it onto runtime manager, and then runtime manager will retrieve additional artifacts from Exchange, and finally it will be clubbed into a container and getting deployed into your Cloud Hub 2.0 environment. So one note of caution is that few things you need to remember, because it is happening in this way. Sometimes what happen, you can see that your application is not getting deployed on Cloud Hub 2.0, but the same application is easily getting deployed on Cloud Hub 1.0. Few reasons, maybe the reason can be, one is that maybe you are using some names of your application which is conflicting with some of the exchange asset. Suppose you are trying to deploy application name and your jar name is hello world, and exchange, in that example, MuleSoft has already provided one example application named hello world. So then it will not, it is failing because it is not allowing you to publish your application on exchange underneath. Or maybe you have some dependency custom assets you are using on your API, like you maybe have your own logging framework, or you maybe have your own exception framework, which you are actually exposed or published on Exchange as an asset, and then you are using it as a Maven plugin, as a Maven dependency in your POM. But you have you have published your asset as suppose 1.0.0 hyphen snapshot. So if you use that snapshot in your version, automatically CloudHub Exchange will consider that it's not the stable version, it is still under development version, right? So when you actually want to deploy your application with some of the asset from Exchange which is in development version, then it will not allow you to deploy your application, because it will throw an error saying that you cannot use a you cannot deploy a stable application with some of the dependency which are still in development stage. So you need to be little bit cautious. Those who have worked in runtime fabric, probably they have gone through that kind of situation. So when you are trying to publish your asset, especially for to be used application which are supposed to deploy on CloudHub 2.0, ensure that once your development is done and you are ready to for your asset to be used by your developers, then change that snapshot part with a real version, so that it will be a stable version, and when people will use that dependency, they can smoothly deploy the app onto your runtime manager.
Hey Anand, I faced one issue actually.
Yeah.
I was using CloudHub 2.0 for POC,
Hmm.
and I had a project. So I had an org, and I have a subgroup, like we can say business unit in that. Okay.
Okay.
So like one is the master and one is the child, I would say. So whenever I was creating, I wanted to deploy the code in CloudHub 2.2. So it was not deploying, and what was happening? I need to supply the Maven coordinates, like coordinates ID, group ID of the
Yeah.
master to, and the code it in a form of jar or something went to the exchange.
Okay.
So this is happening. So I
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this is a issue if master and child want to have separate, and the child thing is going to the master, or correct, or the
Correct. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
so
Because the only reason is that Exchange is coming in between. Earlier CloudHub, there was no reference of Exchange when I'm deploying an application to my CloudHub runtime, right? But here, now your Exchange, in bit, it's not in your control when you are trying to deploy. First, CloudHub 2.0 will publish that asset on Exchange, and then it start deploying. And another thing, even if you see that when you try to delete some of your artifact, right? Suppose you have, you have a application running, and you have only one application, and that one application having a reference from your Exchange, one of the, say, you have a exception handling assets already published on Exchange, and you are using that. Now you delete that application first from your runtime. You go to Exchange. Now you want to delete that asset itself. If you try to delete, it will not allow you to delete. It will keep on saying that it is being referenced by another application. You cannot delete it, but you already deleted the application from your runtime, right? So then if you click on that message, it will take you to Exchange, and you will see that one reference of your application also got created in your Exchange. So first you need to delete that application, then the original asset you can go ahead and delete. So yeah, that is something different, and that's what we need to be a little bit cautious. Maybe you need to create a checklist that no one is deploying your or publishing asset with snapshot version. They are always publishing it with a real stable version, so that your developer should not go through this kind of problems.
because one of my client raised a concern. They had different business unit and they don't wanted their artifact or the
Mhm.
jar goes to the master org. So they
Oh,
did
okay.
not proceed with CloudHub 2.2. because
Oh,
they are
okay, yeah,
separate business unit, so they had this
yeah.
concern.
Yeah, but one thing is that, I mean, what I can tell you that MuleSoft is still working on this CloudHub 2.0 because this is one of their biggest release, and I mentioned that every day I'm seeing that they are updating that and they are bringing on new features, or what I mean, trying to make it more compatible with CloudHub 1.0 and making it a better version of CloudHub 1.0. So yeah, maybe they will take it up, and then that will, if you can, I mean, I believe you already raised this
Yeah,
with
yeah.
MuleSoft server, yeah, so support team, so they also need to know.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Nanda. Please.
No problem. Yeah.
We are having 38 minutes. I hope we can
Oh,
finish.
okay.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
check on time. Yeah, 38
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to finish as soon as possible. So this is why, I mean, okay, I'm not discuss this much because this is how the options, some of the options available for Cloud Hub 2.0 application monitoring. So one of the thing is that, I mean, you all know that runtime dashboard like Cloud Hub 1.0, Cloud Hub 2.0, also this dashboard, there are inbuilt matrices, and if you are a titanium license holder, you will get additional features also. And then you can have your custom dashboard. You can build your custom dashboard for some kind of comparison, like what is the average response time, what is the average error, so that kind of thing. Then you have logs, and normally by default it's like 100 MB per application, or maybe 30 days by default. Or you have that filtering capability where you can filter out the log based on the replica or the log level or the time, and you can use correlation IDs and all to I mean, make it easier to search something specific in the log. The new feature is diagnostics in CloudHub 2.0, which is not available in CloudHub 1.0. So here, what you can do as a developer, you can take the thread dump of your running application, and then you can download it and you can share it with your service request to your CloudHub. I mean, sorry, to your MuleSoft uh, support team if you they are working with some issue which you are facing. So that is one thing, because you can, as a developer, from console, just 1 or 2 clicks, you can download, I mean, you can take the thread dumps and you can check all the current status, what is going on at the thread level. And then obviously there are alerts available, so custom alerts are available. So Cloud Hub 2.0 doesn't support, as far as I know, as of now it doesn't support uh, Cloud Hub connector. But you can, I mean, you can use custom connect sorry, you can use out of the box alerts, out of the box notification. You can use MuleSoft, I think, custom metrics connector to check that which invoice is coming most, and that kind of business level monitoring also possible. Or maybe what type of purchase order is creating the most voluminous transaction. So that if you that kind of business monitoring is needed, that is also possible in Cloud Up 2.0, like Cloud Up 1.0. I think, as I mentioned, that lock point is now available. So lock point is one feature without redeploying your code or without writing any extra line. If you can enable the lock point, and through that, some of the connectors support that. So you can gather the logs, what is going on through your through your interface or through the connector. So that is possible. You can use functional monitoring to check the health of your API. So all these things together build the Cloud Hub 2.0 application monitoring. Most of the things are common between Cloud Hub 2.0 and Cloud Hub 1.0. Diagnostics is new feature. Cloud Hub 1.0 has insight, but Cloud Hub 2.0 doesn't support insight. So you have to rely on more on Anypoint monitoring. So I think that's it. I mean, then I can quickly log on to my Anypoint platform. So this is one of my trial version, and let me go to runtime manager and quickly show you. So since it is trial version, I don't have the private space. I mean, like Cloud Hub also trial version, you don't cannot create dedicated load balancer and BPC. So this is one application I already deployed. So let me show you. So this is the options are available on deployment target. So sorry, in the, yeah, as deployment targets, if you see in the runtime version, it's only 4.3 and above versions are available. And this is the where I can define the replica size. So as we were mentioning that we can have more granular vcores now. I mean, I have 0.5, I have 1.5, and I can deploy, I mean, I can go up to 4 vcore replica size, which is 15 GB of memory. And I can select one replica or I can select multiple replica. If I select multiple replica, I also have an option to run this runtime in cluster mode. So then it will create high availability with clustering capability. And I'm not going to do that. So let me back it to one replica. And then these are the options. I mean, I can go a rolling update, and the other option is recreate. So if you select recreate, then what will happen when you are deploying again, you are apply the changes on this particular application. At that point of time, your application will not be available. So if someone is trying to hit your application, it will get an error. And if I show you my sorry, so if I show this, I mean, it's a very for demo purpose, I have created a very simple application. And if I go to this, so this is I created with HTTPS. I just create one key store. I mean, it is a self-signed certificate I just created using those OpenSSL comments. And this is how I configured that endpoint to show you the last mile security. So if you go to Ingress tab, okay, before last mile security, one thing, this is what I was talking, that whenever I deploy that application, I didn't do anything. I mean, it's not because I created a HTTPS listener on that API. Even if I deploy it with a HTTP listener, you can see this public endpoint will always come up with HTTPS. And when I deployed it on top of, I mean, whatever name I have given to this application, my application name I given as demo shared space ch, or along with that, it has already added 16-digit number, unique number, which ensure that across the globe my application remain unique. And if I don't select this last mile security, because I am using HTTPS listener, so what I am trying to do with last mile security, I'm saying that my ingress, that you will get traffic on HTTPS from your public internet. But when you reroute this traffic to the actual application, you have to reroute it over HTTPS. So that is what last mile security is doing. If I don't select last mile security here, since my application is deployed on HTTPS, it will not be reachable from ingress to my shared space, because then ingress will try to provide the traffic on HTTP. And I mean, the way I have defined or implemented my application, it cannot accept HTTP. I mean, cannot accept traffic on HTTP. So makes sense?
If we are unchecking it, it routes as HTTP, correct?
Correct. It will route as HTTP. So if I have some application deployed on HTTP listener itself, then I have to uncheck it and it will work. But since, as I show you, that my application I have created on HTTPS listener, so I have to select this last mile security because I want it to be HTTPS all along.
Okay, what if if we uncheck the last mile security and still want to hit the application with HTTPS?
It will not. I mean, let me show you. Okay. So now if I, this is the endpoint I define. See, I am getting an, I mean, I just create one simple application. I am getting some response, right? So now if I remove this last mile security and one before that, you see I have done this rolling update, right? So I'm just last mile security removing, I'm applying the changes. Okay, so now my change is getting applied. If I still hit, I still get the response. Okay. I mean, unless and until it is, see, it's giving me response. So it's still applying. It'll give me some, I mean, it will take some time. Once it get applied, then if I hit, it will not give you the response because I removed that last mile security and I have deployed my application in HTTPS.
Okay,
Yeah,
ideally,
it's
so we need to
because
configure
you,
last
yeah,
music.
yeah. No, ideally, in the sense, I mean, it's up to you how long. I mean, some customers, suppose maybe financial customer or maybe those who are dealing with lot of PI data, right? They actually think that, I mean, whatever transaction is coming at whatever layer doesn't matter. It should be always end to end on HTTPS. Then what you need to do, obviously, one thing is that your listener would be on HTTPS, and you deploy that application and then you tick the last mile security, and it will not do SSL offloading. Okay, but other thing is that some customers are okay that as long as my public traffic coming to my ingress layer, which is the entry level of my shared space or my cloud hub, if that part is secure, then after that the traffic is on my control, it is internal to my VPC and all. I'm okay to have HTTP there because HTTPS offloading will actually have some, I believe it has some performance, I mean, network level performance impact. So if that is the case, then you need not to select it. I mean, if you are trying to connect to a HTTP endpoint, I mean, your listener is HTTP, not an HTTPS, and you deploy that application, then don't select that last mile security. Got my point?
Yeah, understood. Clear. Sorry to in the deployment target. Can you go to deployment target tab?
Mm,
It's like
this
the
one?
first one. Left of ingress, left side of ingress.
Uh,
Deployment.
oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, can you scroll down a little bit?
Yeah.
Uh, you told something on the deployment model. Can you?
Yeah, that's what I said, right? That rolling update, and other one is recreate. So if you select recreate, then once the application start deploying, you will not, that application, your application will not be reachable. I mean, the older version is not, will not be reachable. So there will be a downtime.
Okay. If we have rolling update in the sense like during upgradation also we'll be able to
Old one.
okay.
That's what I show you, right? That when it is still
Yeah, correct, correct.
applying
Well,
configuration, I can still, yeah, is still,
all right.
because I select rolling update. If I select that recreate, then moment it start applying the changes, I will not be able to reach to my application.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
And other thing, when it is what I actually, I create one demo, but I don't think I have time to complete it. So because it will take some time, and since it's trial version, it's taking some time to deploy also. So see, I have created a data wave library. Again, it's for just for demo purpose, and I deployed it on Exchange. Okay, and if you see, this is the version what I was talking. Okay, and if you see, it's in development mode. Okay, and there are three modes are available: development, stable, and deprecated. So unless I deploy these apps, these assets in a stable mode, means if unless I remove this snapshot from my version, if I use this particular, means if I use this dependency snippet on my code cloud of application and try to deploy that application, it will not allow me to do that. Okay, so that's what I was explaining when I was showing you that what is the difference in cloud. I mean, how Cloud Hub 2.0 is differ in terms of deploying application. So let me go to runtime manager. Let's see it is done or not. So in between, if you have any questions, because I know it will take some time because it's trial version and all, but if you have a license version, it's really fast. I mean, it doesn't take that much of time. And I don't know, maybe network is also creating some problem.
Hey Anand, talked about the out. You talked about the
Egress.
outbound firewall egress.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, like so when you say egress, you mean to say we hit the endpoint and after that it is connecting some other systems, correct? So
Yeah.
let's say it is connecting a Spring Boot application
Mhm.
or and that is consuming our MuleSoft thing. So you can define some policies there, or how what we can do
Correct,
there.
correct. I mean, you can egress, you can, in now there are egress firewalls, and you can at least, reroute your traffic to a
Amit, can you
specific.
go on mute? Yeah, please repeat, Ananda. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so you can now reroute your traffic to, I mean, your outbound traffic also you can now control that where you want to reach. I mean, suppose as I mentioned that, I mean, suppose I want all my experience API are supposed to call going to process API, or maybe, I want that this API is only supposed to talk to another API of that sort. And that I can, I mean, earlier what happened in Cloud Hub, it's the ingress traffic which we can control only. Right now we can control the ingress traffic as well as egress traffic through this egress
Yeah.
firewall.
Sure. Anyone? Any question?
I have a question actually.
Yeah.
Another like ingress. What actually you mean by ingress?
Ingress is the traffic coming to your application. Egress is traffic going away from your application. I mean, while you are
Inbound and
initiating
outbound.
that, yeah, correct, inbound and out.
Ingress,
Inbound.
egress.
Yeah. Ingress is inbound. Egress is
E-
outbound traffic.
Correct, correct, correct.
Egress.
Yeah.
Egress. E G or EWS. Egress. Yeah. I will type.
Okay.
I type.
Okay.
And other thing what I mean, I didn't mention, but another improvement in CloudHub 2.0, especially if you have a Titanium license, you can, if you are using a private space and an ingress load balancer, you can download the log, or you can see the log of that load balancer itself. So currently what is happening in CloudHub, suppose someone is trying to reach out to your application. First, the traffic will land on dedicated load balancer. Then dedicated load balancer will send the data to your uh, application. But problem with Cloud Hub is that unless your traffic reach to your application, you cannot see anything in the log, right? So if you have someone is asking, hey, your dedicated load balancer reach your, got my traffic, you don't have any answer. Only thing we need to go to again to customer support and all, and they can only fetch, check and confirm or fetch out that log for us. But here in Cloud Hub 2.0 with Titanium license, I think you can get that logs. You can get the logs of that load balancers also. So
Oh,
you can now have more insight that what is happening over there.
okay. For other licenses, enterprise and all, is it not?
I am not sure. That's why Titanium, and definitely it's possible. But since my this trial version, I don't have private space, so that's why I didn't able to test it. With other version it's possible, on license it's possible or not. I think it's possible because everywhere they are saying that now this is the improvement, that you can see that you can have that ingress load balancer logs. So I believe other license also have that facility, but Titanium, I know definitely it's possible.
So ideally, it's just to reduce the dependency on the customer. Correct.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I think this application come back. I think, let me show once again. I believe it is. Okay, now this last mile security is not there. And if I hit it, let me. Oh, it's still responding. I don't know. Ideally, it should not. I don't know. I need to check why it is responding. So yeah, but I checked. It's not. If you are using HTTPS, it's not going to.
Yeah.
Or maybe I don't know. They have now given some improvement that even
Can
HTTPS
you
will
try
not work.
in incognito tab once?
Okay, let me take this.
Maybe it's taking the cache.
Uh, Not sure. Earlier I tested in that way, and oh,
Oh,
it's
it's
still
coming.
coming. I don't know. Yeah, it was a lesson learned for me also.
Okay. So what's
Okay.
the use of that last mile security? Then
It's HTTPS end to end. You are saying you are not allowing your traffic to move any places. Even when this is going between ingress to your application, right? So ingress to your application, it's very much within your territory, within your boundary. You I'm saying MuleSoft boundary, but even that also you want to do through a HTTPS. because a lot of places what happen, like banking domain or healthcare domain or many domain, many places they do have a lot of security audit, and they need to give a justification that my traffics, my transactions are always secured end to end. So this is, if you do a last mile security, and we can show that, see boss, my entire traffic is through HTTPS, nobody can intervene, nobody can hack that, because I'm going through a transport layer, secure transport layer. So that's the main importance of this last mile security.
Yeah, that's clear. Like unchecking it is an other scenario which we are
I'm
as
checking
per
it,
our,
you are actually trying to offloading. Your private, see, this is your public endpoint, this HTTPS demo, whatever, blah, blah,
yeah.
blah. Okay, so,
I've
yeah, sorry, go.
got last mile security checking and unchecking, but when unchecking able to get the data in the sense like response. So that's a question like if with last mile security enabled, it's a end-to-end HTTPS, and if it is unchecked and our application is on HTTPS, even still we are able to hit, correct?
Hmm. Yeah, I will check it, because earlier also I checked it. Earlier when I test it, is not supposed to, but I don't know. Yeah, if it is gets a transaction when I'm on HTTPS, it offloads, and ideally it's sending the transaction. It should. I think then it's a better flexibility, because it's up to me now. If I remove it, I still want to go to the transaction to my endpoint application, right? Because it's me who is deciding that I don't need last mile security. But that doesn't mean, again, I will change the listener from HTTPS to HTTP and redeploy the code. You got my
Yeah.
point, right?
Yeah, but ideally it should not happen, right? If unchecking last mile security takes the like enroutes the call as
Hmm.
HTTP, and however our application is hosted as HTTPS, how is that getting matched then?
No, your public endpoint is still HTTPS, right? And external people cannot call it on HTTP. You got my point. This is always HTTPS.
No, no,
So,
that is HTTPS. What I'm
yeah.
telling, what I'm asking is,
Even in dedicated load balancer, right, in CloudHub today, you can offload the HTTPS. That's what someone pointed out, right, that there are options, so you
no,
can do a.
mentioned on the
Oh, okay,
data.
okay, yeah, same thing, right.
So no, like if we are unchecking last mile security, as
Hmm.
per your explanation, the call will route as HTTP, correct?
Correct.
So when the call is getting routed as HTTP and our listener is on HTTPS, how does both are getting matched?
And that's what so far I
Yeah,
never
yeah, no,
seen it's
no,
happening.
no. I
It's
yeah,
now
I've
it's
understood
working.
where we
Yeah,
are.
yeah,
Just for
correct, yeah,
anyone on the same page, I'm just describing it.
yeah, sure. But yeah, I think one of the option what I believe, actually earlier when it was not happening, so my understanding is that I should deploy the code in HTTPS. I mean, because I want a last mile security, and due to some reason in down the line, if I don't want that last mile security, I don't want to also redeploy the code. If I can do something from here, that is much better. But I don't know whether I am calling it properly at this moment and something is not working. I am not doing it. That's why still it is showing this, mm, response. But trust me, I tried it earlier also. And
Mm.
when I removing this last mile security and deploying the code on HTTPS, it didn't allow me to invoke that application.
Okay, okay. Maybe I might be utter wrong, but I'm not
Hmm.
sure. If we tick like enable last mile security, maybe if our application is hosted, even still the call goes on HTTPS also. Don't know.
I doubt. No, I think because last mile security, you need to also, because you need to secure your application first, right? So I don't know. Maybe we need to test that.
Yeah, that's the
Mm,
first place where the certificate gets replaced on the Anypoint platform.
correct. Yeah. Correct.
So
So
without we implementing our application on HTTPS,
mm,
and there's no point of talking about security only then.
correct. Yeah.
Hey
Correct.
Anand, a
No, you
question
are
is here.
correct. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any chance to use two-way certificate validation with last mile security?
Yeah. You have trust. store, right? I just only use, I mean, that as I mentioned, that you have to, for two-way security, you have to define this one also, right?
Sure.
This is typical MuleSoft. I mean, this is there earlier also. It has nothing to do with CloudHub or CloudHub 2.0.
Yeah. Any other question? Anyone?
So only thing what I mean, this option is available now in CloudHub 2.0 because it was not there in CloudHub 1.0. And even in CloudHub 1.0 with shared load balancer, you don't have that option at all, right? You cannot do anything on the load balancer side. So that is what has been added in CloudHub 2.0. I mean, dedicated load balancer you can define, or you can, I mean, you can configure that, but shared load balancer, it's totally out beyond your reach, and it's only MuleSoft who can manage. And in the properties also, one more thing I can show you. So suppose I am creating some property, right? And this is just random property I'm creating. If you see, there is an option called protect, right? So it's not secure, it's protect. So protect means if I click on protect, and I'm going to tell that protect my value, then what will happen, that it will not show this value anymore on this console, and nobody can see this. Okay, you can replace the protected value. Even then also you will get the key name, and you can allow to give the new value, but you can never able to see that that original value what is you are providing in first place. So this way, if you are dealing with some kind of PI data and all in this property, it will be secured or protected. So this is also new to CloudHub 2.0. This is also not available in CloudHub 1.0.
Yeah, Nanda, do you have anything to cover, or like we are good?
No, I am done pretty much now. I think that's
Yeah,
it from
I
my end.
think I have taken all the question. Like if anyone have any other questions, we still have few minutes. Anyone who wants to ask anything about the session? It was a great session, Ananda. I learned a lot. It was very descriptive, and you covered all the point very well. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Amit, and thanks. I mean, because we have a lot of great discussion also. I mean, not in
Yeah,
the
it was.
only in the form of question, but a lot of discussion. And yeah, I enjoyed thoroughly, and it's my honor to be here as a speaker. And thanks to Sam, Amit, for giving me that opportunity.
Thank you
And
for having here. Yeah,
thank you
any
Amit,
question,
for
anyone? Yeah,
interacting session.
anyone, any question? Unfortunately, we don't have the trivia because it was a very last minute news for us. By then, we have published our meetups and all, that MuleSoft has just stopped giving vouchers from Jan 1st 2023, and we cannot give from our side because like we don't have any. So normally what we used to do, we had this trivia, and the three winners, we will drop a mail to the MuleSoft training team to enroll them in a training or a voucher. But it has stopped for some reason, and if it comes back, definitely we will resume it again. But like the focus is on learning, not on that quiz and voucher, it seems like that, as per my understanding. But I don't think that will stop us in having great discussion, because the vouchers and certificate and other things maybe we can get from our orgs. But we'll see, what we will ask them when they're